Hello everyone and welcome back to the Game Emporium, where some friends have gathered around the table to talk about some board games once again. And this time we're back in 2022. We're only 2 years ago and we're talking about some games that came out that year.
It's like a lifetime ago.
It does feel like so long ago. You had a baby that was just figuring out how to crawl.
Yeah.
I had just gotten engaged.
And potentially eat board game pieces.
Potentially ate the board game pieces. He did that a lot. I had just gotten engaged in March of that year, so that's it feels like a lifetime ago, which is ridiculous. I don't quite understand it, but anyway, that's how it is. 2022. It was a while ago. Yeah. There were some good games that came out in 2022.
There were some good games.
I have quite the list, I think.
Me too.
So let's get into what we're talking about. Oh, by the way, my name's Luke. That's Ross.
Oh yeah, hey.
And we're gonna talk about some games that came out in 2022.
We are.
Let's get into it with the honourable mentions. Ross, would you like to go first with your honourable mentions?
I would love to go first. I'm going to leave the surprising factor to the very end. On my honourable mentions.
Yes.
On my mentions. Got Twilight Inscription.
Mm-hmm. The roll version of Twilight Imperium.
Not bad. This maybe doesn't have the same opera, but it's just uses the same universe. It's just a roll and write, which is a bit chunky. So anyway, honourable mention. Woodcraft is on there. Mm-hmm. I do enjoy Woodcraft. It's probably imagine it's maybe going to come up on your list, but maybe not guaranteed. I'm not really sure. We're going to find out because I don't really know how you feel about that sometimes. Verdant is one of them as well. A little puzzle game about plants and matching them up to rooms and stuff.
Why is it not higher on your list?
Woodcraft?
No, Verdant.
Verdant. I think you'll see there's other
Okay.
puzzle-esque games that I think have just knocked it out.
Okay.
I think have taken that spot in what I would put in my top 5. Foundationals of Rome I've put on there. Mm-hmm. Ridiculously overproduced game, but still quite a good game. But I think also sometimes good because of how overproduced it is.
Yeah.
It's quite nice that you've got these big chunky plastic bricks that you're trying to squeeze into and use all these shapes. But and then my final one, which also could have snuck in really in that top 5 spot, I think in particular. Oh, in fact, this isn't the surprise one, but the final one, which isn't the surprise one, but could have snuck in there, was Decorum as well, which may appear maybe on your list or might not. I don't really know. Yeah, I thought so. Good. Again, another good kind of puzzle. Hidden information kind of game where you try to decor your house, but you're all roommates who apparently don't talk to each other other than occasionally a group meeting where you're like, I do or don't like this thing. Why didn't you tell me that before I put up that picture then? I mean, we never know. We'll never know. Do you want to know the shocker though?
Go on.
Weather Machine has not made my 5.
That's not surprising.
Okay, good. Okay.
That isn't surprising because we played Weather Machine once. We played 2/3 of Weather Machine, and we played 2/3 of Weather Machine wrong.
Yep.
So, trifecta of things that...
I'm looking to correct those things.
Oh, I'm sure we will play it at some point.
It felt like I'd be a fraud, and I'd only be throwing on Lacerda games for the sake of throwing on Lacerda games, not necessarily because I've actually played or enjoyed them. So it's definitely on an honourable mention because it's still a certain game. The theme is really good, and it does seem like it should be a good game. Maybe, probably, if you're playing it correctly, it would be better.
It was good fun, yeah. My honourable mentions, first one is Dog Park. This is it's a tableau game where you are walking dogs, and it's just cute dog work. It's a debut game for Birdwood Games, and Hazel and Jack. I can't remember what their surname is. But they're great. No, Lottie and Jack. Hazelwood, part of their last name. But great little game. Loads of different dogs that you can sort of play with and get all sorts of stuff going with it. Really enjoy it. One of Laura's favourites. Tilitum, or Tilitum.
Yes.
Really good Euro game with dice placement where you draft dice and you're going the power of the die will inversely affect the number of actions you can do. So you can either gain more resources and do fewer actions, or you can do more actions, fewer resources. Really interesting. Libertalia, The Winds of Galecrest, the Stonemaier game where you are the reprint of Barnum Murray's original Libertalia, but just updated with more colourful art and animals, which is, I think, is really nice, and it's just a enjoyable experience that it actually makes sense to play at 2, which is my normal player count generally. Marvel Remix, which is a redo of basically a Marvel version of Fantasy Realms. So a hand management game where you're just trying to get as many points as you can. I just really like it because it's got the villains in there which will cause problems for you. So you kind of have to make sure there's a villain in there. You kind of make it not be as bad for you, which is kind of good. And then this might shock you. I don't know. Articats Explore and Draw is the last honourable mention there. It was close. It nearly made it, I think, but it was. I played it recently, and I was kind of like, okay, maybe I'm coming to the end of everything that's in this game, potentially, in the terms of seeing everything. So who knows?
Yes,
but still a really good game, and still the version of Articats that I would play over all others, personally.
Yes.
And I think the thing that's going to surprise you in this list is there is no Garfield Games game in this list. Because I think the only one that came out in that year was Wayfarers of the South Tigris, and I haven't played that game enough. I need to play it more because I've played it a couple of times solo, and I played it with Laura, and there's a few things in there that bug me that I maybe haven't quite understood. So I probably need to play with you so that we've got a time we can actually get into the minutiae of it. Yeah.
I think there's a game I haven't mentioned, which I think you will mention, which, but it kept flipping between for my number 5 slot. But we can come to it in a second if you want to instead. I think I'll wait.
Let's dive into our first games of this list. Let's go into number 5. So my number 5 is a game that Ross has already mentioned. And this is Woodcraft. So, for a while, Woodcraft was probably a higher contender. I think when I first did this list, Woodcraft was a lot higher. And then I played it. So, what you're doing in Woodcraft is it's a dice management action selection game where you are picking up an action tile from this circular saw wheel and moving it around the board, placing it down, and getting and doing the action that is there. And you're basically trying to complete orders, and you're trying to collect dice so that you can build out particular items of wooden objects like chairs and a dresser and all sorts of fancy stuff like that. And in doing so, you have to have the exact type of dice, so green, yellow, and brown dice, which gives you specific values that have to match up with it. And there's a lot of different things that are going on with this game, which I really like. And it's a really tight game in that you've only have 14 turns, or 13 if you're playing a 4-player game. In order to complete as many of these different actions as you can. If you take too long in fulfilling an order, then it drops down, your reputation goes down because you're taking too long on it. And it's just sort of trying to build that engine, and the ultimate goal of being able to get like another bonus whole other turn that you can do. It's very hard to do. It is doable. I've seen it happen. I haven't done it. It's a really good game. I think it suffers for me that I played it twice reasonably close together, like maybe within like a couple of weeks. And it was a case of, okay, I get what's going on here. I think I understand how the game's supposed to be played. I'm not sure I'm able to play it the way it's necessarily meant to play it, or not well enough. I do still enjoy it, which is why it's number 5, but it's just slipped behind some of the other games.
I think for me the best way I can describe it is almost a little dry for me, I think.
Which is interesting.
I think that's the way I can describe it. Which is why it's just not in the top 5, and why it's not kind of was obviously made the honourable mentions list. It's just a bit. I think it's almost ridiculously. I think it's almost too tight. I like a game where it's just about efficiency, but I like a game where, particularly as the orders are kind of random, and based on some of the other setup, it's just there's no. For the game for being so tight, I think there has to almost be zero randomization in it. Almost zero randomization. And I think this game's so tight that I would say that maybe that's required.
I guess, because the good thing about this is that there's a lot of manipulation you can do to your dice.
Yes.
You can like glue bits of scrap wood onto it to expand it out. You can cut dice down and make smaller dice values and split them up into however you want to. You can merge 2 different types of dice together to make one super die, which is really good. I think if it didn't have any of that manipulation stuff, it would be it would fall on its face a little bit. So it's kind of good informatic in that sense.
Yes. There's just stuff like when we played it, the apprentice, I think that's the right word
Yeah.
for them. You have helpers essentially working in your workshop. Obviously, some of them are significantly stronger than others. So obviously, if you do get that, if you're lucky enough to get one of those cards, which then enables you to do the thing, then you are going to succeed far more than someone else. Whether you're doing exactly the same moves or have the same strategy or going for the same approach. And for me, that's not to say that that other person has executed their plan more efficiently than you
got lucky.
It's just that they got lucky because they had the opportunity to extend their lead slightly. And I think it's a small amount, but it's just enough that I'm a bit like, and it's just a bit frustrating. And then it's a bit like, well, now I'm just like dry. I'm trying to literally like force myself through the game now and if I make one mistake, I'm going to be like kicking myself for the rest of the game, and then that's just like, it's quite a long game to be in that situation, I think.
Yeah, and I think we had a similar experience when we played Evacuation as well, which was the follow-up game from the States, from Delicious Games and the same publisher, where we kind of went, okay. There are things within Evacuation, though, that I think there's a different mode of play that we can do. Which I think we should probably try that before we sign it one way or the other. But it's still a very good game. It's a very... This is the thing. This is, again, these are subjective opinions. I feel like we should clarify this. And these are our views on the game. It's still empirically a good game. It's just subjectively...
Yes. It comes from a place of love because I think I had higher expectations for it, and then it didn't reach that. So then, obviously, that fall is greater. I think is the problem there.
And it's still great. I still think it's pretty good. All right, what's your number 5 that's possibly didn't make the list?
Oh yeah, my number 5. Yes, no, well, my number 5, which beat Verdant off, was actually Tinawaku. So kind of a puzzle game. But, okay, this is the best way to describe it. It's if Sudoku and... and Minesweeper had a baby. That's basically how you can explain this game.
Oh,
because...
sorry. Tekenu. No, it's not Tekenu.
No, it's
Tiwanaku. Yeah.
Tinawaku,
right,
yes.
Sorry. Because the way you said it made it seem like you were talking about Tinawaku, Obelisk of the Sun, the board and dice game. And I was just like, what?
Tinawaku. So, essentially, you have it's a puzzle essentially that you're working out. So, like I say, it's Minesweeper-esque. You've got a grid. You're moving your workers on it. Your worker will reveal a crop type, and then depending on how many of that crop type there are, there might be different color crops that then appear. And essentially, then trying to make a guess based on other information you know. So, for example, it might be you have a group of 3 grass together and then 3 mountain on the other side.
Yeah.
Well, you know that the ones, for example, won't be next to each other, so they must be on the ends of those. That's a poor example because that's a puzzle that's not possible, but just work with me here. Depending on how they're configured anyway, right? So you can then work out which numbers are going to be next to each other.
You also have the tiles that are on the board which fill out the different terrains, and they are at a maximum size. So you was always going to have a 1 in there, but it might, if there's 2 spaces, it's a 1 and a 2. If it's up to 5, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yes. And you'll get different points for guessing different ones, but you'll lose points if you guess incorrectly.
Yes.
And I think sorry, it's your game. I'll let you.
No, I was going to say, the funny thing that I always find, though, when you come to play this game, obviously, it's competitive. You're trying to score points. You're trying to get some diversity in the terrain types that you're finding. You're trying to identify which spaces have the more valuable 5 crops on them, for example. There's set collecting there, so if you are successful at getting different types of crops, you can cash in for more points, essentially. Yeah. But the thing that I always find whenever I play this game is you end up playing cooperatively because you're all sitting there, and by probably about you all start off competitively, and then about halfway through, you're like, "Oh, have you guys noticed that if this thing's here, that must mean that that's there?" And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that does. Oh, that's really good. I can guess this then. And now that I've guessed this, it's secured this information. Now you know that thing's there. So that's really good for you.
You know that I know, and we know that you know.
Yeah. Which is great. I think it's great. And there is like a co-op mode on it and everything, which you could be playing. But yeah, I think it's quite interesting that it's one of those games where you're all working together by the end of it just to figure out the puzzle, rather than
which is kind of nice. To be fair. And the main gimmick of this game is how the information is revealed to you, which is this like little wheel thing that you slot the thing in, and then you slide some bits and pieces around, which is
like a sundial thing. So you've like got windows that you open up basically.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Which is really cool. I do like this game. I forgot it came out in 2022. I think because the Kickstarter delivered last year.
Yes.
So, like, my brain
Yes.
did not consider this a 2022 release because I've only played it from 2023 onwards. So my brain has just gone, oh yeah, that was last year. So yeah,
Yes.
it's good. It is a good little puzzle, and I can understand why it pushed out further. So yeah, good.
Yes.
Good choice. All right, that's our number 5. So let's look at number 4.
Well, number 4. So you've already talked about this a little bit.
Oh.
Is a la carte Straw and Explore.
Oh, there you go.
Explore.
I need to know this up. Is Explore or Draw? You keep
Explore and Draw. Explore and Draw. Sorry. You're exploring, then you are drawing. You're exploring cats, then you're drawing. I don't really. I mean, I get
exploring an island.
There, yeah. So works sort of like a la carte, but not really at all. Obviously, you've got a grid of cards. You pick a row or a column. You
pick a column.
Yes, you pick a column. You could then use powers to pick a row or pick different cards from different columns. So you've got some options on flexibility around that. But the column that you pick will have some cats or some treasure in it. You then
lessons.
draw those, or lessons. You draw those items on your boat, or you tick them off your list for the lessons. And it works the same way for scoring as regular a la carte does, which is you want same cats together, you want to be completing rooms, you want to be doing all that good stuff, you want to be completing whatever lessons you might pick up, the sort of objectives you can pick up. It's obviously a much lighter version, it's a much cleaner implementation of it. They probably didn't need to put the Isle of Cats theme on it, and I think they would have probably had a really good game anyway, but obviously I think it's just some familiarity probably helps a little bit. It's a game I play quite a lot with my other half. And she enjoys the cats bit, and it's a roll and write which she enjoys as well. It's a roll and write, so it has to go on my list. It has to be at least one of them on my list, right? So it's definitely the better of the two, and it's just a good game.
We talked about this when we did the last video. Although I think this is telling a little bit of how your list for 2022 has gone, how many good games came out. Because I feel like Isle of Cats, the base game is like number 2 or 3 on the list that it came up on, as opposed to this being at number 4. So it just a lot of good games came out. I really enjoyed the Isle of Cats Explore Draw. Like I say, I think I'm getting to the point where it's like, okay, I've played this. I've not played it enough. Not played it out. There's definitely games that I have played out a lot, but it's like, okay, this is a game I can. This is a good intro game.
Yes.
Would I necessarily, for what it does, I think it does it really well, and I think it gets rid of the bugbears I have of the main game. It does get rid of fish, baskets, drafting, it's just unnecessary extra add-on. Would I necessarily introduce this to someone over cartographers? Probably not.
Probably not.
But they're both good games in their same sphere. It did enter my top 50 very briefly, and I think I cooled on it a little bit. Just probably because I didn't play it. Ironically, didn't play it that often after I got it, but it's still a good little game, so I quite enjoy it. My number 4. This, I think 2022 was definitely the year of puzzly games, because the game that got released for me that came in at number 4 is Paint the Roses.
Oh, nice game.
So this is a Alice in Wonderland themed game where you are basically you're at the whim of the Queen of Hearts. So you are putting out different tiles. You're going to have different cards in your hand that will tell you about either a suit, 2 suits of cards together, 2 colours of cards together, of different roses in the bushes, or you're going to have a colour and a suit. And you've got those different options that you can have. You're going to place a tile out into the garden, and you're going to have a look at the cards and see how well that interacts with the whims that the Queen has given you. Excuse me. And you and the rest of it's a co-op game, so the rest of you are going to be doing this. You're the gardeners in the Queen of Hearts garden, so you're trying to put this all together for her.
And run away from her.
Because if you get it wrong, she will speed up and chase you, and as you move around the board, as you go past the white rabbit, she will speed up and chase you, and it's really difficult. You can't play this game by just going on easy mode.
Yes.
You have to get through some of the more difficult ones to keep
which is good,
a head step, which is really nice. But basically what will happen is you'll look at and see, does that tile that's been played match any of my cards in any way? If it does, you'll put down a cube of how many times it's done. So if I put down like 2 hearts next to each other, Ross's card is 2 hearts. I can go, oh, you can put it down, and there's like 3 hearts connecting to there. You can go, okay, I can put it down twice. So, okay, cool. What thing on here is going to match up? Because it could be heart to heart twice, or it could be red to yellow twice. And then I have to try and figure out which one it is that's done based on other information on there.
Yellow to hearts on the harder.
If it's a harder one, it could be yellow to hearts, or
which is even harder.
Which is another way around. So.
The kind of nice thing about it as well is you could put a tile down to try give me clues, but they could trigger my card, and I end up putting clue cubes on there as well, which is quite a nice thing. So it's not because I find a lot of the time with kind of like essentially 2-player kind of like cooperative kind of games like this is. I'm one player one. I'm giving you information.
Yes.
And then you do something with that. And it's just quite nice that there's a small opportunity, but there is an opportunity where you could actually, if I've given you a previous clue, you could use it to confirm that information as well.
Yes, by doing something on my turn for me.
Yes.
But there's also an element of every time a tile goes down, it's information for both of us.
Yes.
Because it's a case of, okay, I'm putting this tile down here. It is a club to spade that I'm putting down, it's connected to some spades. Neither of us put anything down, so it's definitely not club to spade or
ruled out all those things.
Rules out the information, right? So it's really good for that. Yeah. I definitely need to play it more because I've got all sorts of like little expansions that came in the deluxe set that I really want to give a go to. There's a lot of stuff in there, so yeah. Paint the Roses, it's a good one. I really like it. It's just good fun.
Yeah. Nice, great choice.
So that's our number 4 game, so let's go into number 3. We're sticking with puzzles at number 3, because my next one is Decorum. You've talked about this a little bit already. So, in Decorum, this is a game where you are cooperatively cohabiting, but you are doing these little things. So basically, on your turn, you've got these little set conditions. There's a whole bunch of different scenarios that are available to you in the box, and now I think it came out relatively recently. The app is available, so you now have infinite puzzles to keep the game going forever.
That's really, really good.
Which is nice. But what will happen is you will set up a room. This is how your houses start. You just move in together. It's a wonderful scenario. It's a great thing. But when you play through it, you'll go, okay, well, these don't really meet my conditions. So the way you have the cards in hand, you go, okay, so I need the bathroom to be green, and I also need the kitchen to be green. So you're going to go, or at least you need the rooms to be particular colours. So you're just going to go, okay, well, this is already green, so I'm going to change it to green. I'm going to put it down and say, that's pretty good. I want to do that. And then you ask your neighbour, how do you feel about that? And the only options they can give to you is whether they like it or love it, whether they hate it, or whether they're neutral on it. And it's just a passive-aggressive communication of just trying to put these things together. Which, as Ross says, why would you not just converse as normal human beings? But let's be honest, we've all lived with people that you can't necessarily say things directly to them, so you have to be a little passive-aggressive about it.
Going to also say the game is you add a little extra spice onto the game if you would just add not a lot, you don't have to go crazy, just a tiny bit of role play on there. A tiny little bit of role playing into it just makes all the difference.
Just a little bit of fun.
Maybe get a little bit more creative with the I hate it kind of expression that you go.
What are you doing? Putting puce into the bathroom?
Yes.
That vase is my grandmother's ashes. It inhabits her soul. Why have you removed it? Sort of thing.
That's why you removed it. Yeah, that's exactly it. So, or moved into the toilet. I don't know. Any of those things, right?
Exactly. So, it's just really. You can do one of 3 things. You can take something out, move something in, or you can just swap some stuff. And it's really good fun to sort of lean to role play. I have not played anywhere near enough of this game, but every time I sit down to play it, I go, man, this is great. This is good fun.
I have 2 things to say on it. One, I was really hoping you were going to mention it because otherwise it would, in your list, because it would have been absolute injustice that I'd only just put it on my honourables mention because it should really be on there.
Yep.
But there was some other strong contenders. 2, it's a game, one of those games where if I'm at yours and we're like, oh, we got like 25 minutes or something like that, we need to play a game and kill it. Almost every time I would want to play that. If you were like, we can play these selection of like 5 games that are going to fill out a slot, and Decorum was in there, I'd probably be like, let's play Decorum because I enjoy it.
It's just silly. It's just a silly puzzle. Yeah. And with the app really now that you can just go more, it doesn't matter if you play through the campaign. But also, let's be honest, you're probably going to forget at some point. So, and what I do like in the game though is that it does come with a campaign for 2 players, and it comes with one for 3 to 4 players, which is nice. Normally, you'd be like, this is just all you got.
Yes.
Good luck. sort of thing.
Yes.
So yeah, I like it. Decorum is real good. Nice.
Yes.
Nice job, Floodgate.
Do you want to know about mine?
I suppose so. That's why we're here.
Nice. It's not really a roll and right. It's not at all, actually. Flip and right. I use that sometimes. I sometimes use this anyway to explain it, but it's not really a thing at all. It's Guild of Merchant Explorers.
Ah, yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So every player has the same map in front of them, which have little hexes on it. I think they are hexes.
Hexes, yeah.
And you flip a terrain tile, and then everyone puts some cubes, starting from like their home city, on that terrain tile. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is if you fill all of the same type of terrain, you put a little village down, and then going forward in future rounds, you can then navigate off your villages and your main city, because at the end of each round you will bring back all of the cubes that you've put on your map, and all you're left with are the essentially settlements that you've placed. And then what you're doing is you're trying to score points, essentially a variety of different ways. Typically it's to gain some coins, or it's to look at some treasure, or it's connect some towers, like mystical towers and all this sort of stuff. There's a fun little element at the end as well, also because I mentioned around the fact that you have just these terrain types that you're flipping. Is a sort of like a not really a deck building element to it, but it's kind of like I'm going to go deck building is probably the closest to explain it, which is you've got like a section of powers that you pick, and you're shuffling them in, and then what happens is it flips like an A, B, or C, but that triggers your personal. Yeah, probably deck building is not the right word, but it's the best way I can describe it, I think. But that triggers your personal power.
It's a little asynchronous power that comes out at different points for different eras. Yeah. So you get some extra. You can go. I can just put down 5 cubes in this particular thing in a straight line, or whatever.
Which is really strong. Just that ability is just quite strong. It's one which I think when we did our top 100, I think it was like number 2 or 3. I think on my list, really high up. I think it's starting to fall down a little bit, just because there's a lot of other games that I'm kind of leaning a little bit more heavier on my games now, so I think that's my main reason why.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy it. It just, in fact, this is probably the better reason why it sits in that really awkward space where it's not light enough that I can just be like, hey everyone, let's just play this light game, or let me introduce you to this game, and it's not heavy enough where we're like, hey, let's tackle something. We've got like 3 hours on this day, we organise it, let's tackle this big game.
Yeah.
So it just always falls into that void where it's never talking about the 5 games you might pick on like a 25-minute thing or something like that. It's never going to be like, it's in a weird time zone, I think is a problem. In a weird waiting.
Yeah. I think of this game, because people, you're right, it is kind of roll and writey, except you're not writing, but you are flipping cards over. It's a flip and do a thing. I think of this as the Kingdom Builder roll and write.
Yes,
they are designed,
great example.
They are designed by completely different people. They just do what they are, but in Kingdom Builder, you're just flipping over a card, and then you're going to be building on the terrain. In this one, you kind of have a little bit more control, because you get to pick those actions, those special actions that you get to do. You get to use those uniquely for yourself.
Yes.
And also, you have no control over the terrain, and everyone is hit by the same thing. So it's kind of not so bad that you do it. And there are different like personal objectives or public objectives that you can do for everyone to try and score points in each round. It is good. I did enjoy it. I do enjoy it when I play it. I've got rid of my copy of it.
You did. And then I picked mine up about, I don't know, 3 months later or
something. No, you picked yours up like 4 months before, when I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this. You then got your own copy, and I was like, well, that's unfortunate, because I could have just sold it to you. Done you a deal. But it's like, I like it. I don't like it enough to own it. I think there's, like as you say, there's other games that sort of fill that niche.
Yes.
Which is not a bad thing anyway. I still always play it, because there's all sorts of different maps that you can play in, which I think we've only really played like 1 or 2.
I mean, I have played it quite a few times. I think I've played 3 or 4 of the maps now, I think, but they're not so radically different.
Sure, it's not.
I don't think I could tell you now off the top of my head specifically what the differences are really between the maps.
Might just be terrain types and locations and things. Like.
It is really essentially,
yeah. So it's a good game. I do enjoy it. The solo mode is interesting, but it was one of those things of I'm probably not going to play this that frequently. Laura doesn't like it. I don't enjoy the solo mode enough to keep it for just myself. When the person I would play it with also has a copy, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. And that's kind of the thing, right? Sometimes you got to cull something to your collection to make room for other stuff that you're both going to enjoy. There's nothing wrong with that. It's still a good game. I still enjoy it. Cool. That's our number 3 games then. So let's go into our number 2s.
My number two. Oh boy, this was so nearly my number 1.
Ooh,
so nearly. Is my number 2 is Carnegie. So,
wow. Okay.
So Carnegie, right? Okay. Basically, not really industrializing is the right word, maybe like, but you know, in America, you're placing out projects across all these American cities. You are trying to connect the cities with those projects. You are building out your like headquarters with different departments that let you do different powers. But the actual crunch a little bit that comes in this game is because, like some of the games we mentioned previously, actually, is when you pick an action, everyone else does that action. And then on top of that, there are only a limited number of turns in the game.
Yes.
So you know that you are basically you're limited by how much you can really do. So it becomes very much an efficiency thing, which is why I think, for example, when I compare to Woodcraft a little bit, maybe a bit, no, I think it is a fair comparison actually. Not in the same game sort of thing, but in the same way that it's a bit of a crunch, but there's less randomization, which is what I was talking about before.
Yeah.
In a game where you have tight number of rounds and turns, and you want to be able to have as much control as you can to be essentially feel like you personally have been effective and done the good thing that scored you the points in that game.
Yeah.
This is the one for it. There's a really good mechanism around. Basically, you send your workers out to go.
They go on missions.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what the word is, but it's a mission essentially.
Yeah,
They're 2 different regions, and then when you trigger an action, that is there's tracks which randomise. That it is randomised, but at least you know it up front about when that region might trigger, which lets you pull a worker back, which lets you take an income based on how many projects you've put out, and also depending on where you are, travelled along this kind of like infrastructure route. Essentially, do you have? If you only have a horse and cart, you're only going to get maybe like 1 coin. But if you have rail works, you're going to be earning goods, or you're going to be earning victory points, or you might be earning like some research or something like that. So, I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it. I probably play it more digitally, sadly, because it is quite a pretty game. I think it's quite a pretty game.
Yeah, it is pretty good.
For the kind of the context of what the theme is, I think it's very pretty.
Yeah, because I mean, you are playing out the life of the entrepreneur and
I forgot a little bit.
Yeah,
you carry
the entrepreneur of Carnegie who did all these things in his life.
Yes.
Which, I'll be honest, I don't really know that much about what he did. That's British history in school for you. Is it doesn't come up. We just don't know. We talk about Tudors a lot for some reason. For some bizarre reason, World War II and Tudors. Those are the 2 things.
Yeah, those are 2. And the Roman Empire.
Yeah. What to say?
That's history.
That's
in the UK.
We have too much history. That's the problem. But yeah, so you're just sort of going through that aspect of it. You're just trying to build things out, and as you say, you get the action and bonuses. You're getting all sorts of things. I like it. I have a problem with the randomized setup.
Yes. Okay.
Probably because we predominantly played at 2. I don't know if it's the same at multiple player counts, but during the game there are certain location spots which are blocked off.
That is a problem with playing with fewer players. Even a 3-player game, still some of the cities are blocked.
Some of the cities are randomly blocked off. I never know.
Yes.
I don't know from our one time that we played it physically why they're set up that way. I don't know. It doesn't really matter for the purpose of this.
Yeah.
But there are certain routes that you can get connecting from like the major cities. So from like Los Angeles across to New York, you get a lot of nice rail links. The problem is there's only like 3 routes into Los Angeles, and if one of those is blocked off in a 2-player game,
which I think I did last time we played,
it just automatically. It automatically blocked off the main route through the middle of it.
Yes,
and then the other one isn't available, and it's just like, well, that's a problem, and it doesn't. It's not as satisfying as opposed to if the board was open and you like Ticket to Ride style where you're blocking things off. It is a little frustrating. I also struggle playing with this digitally because I just can't ever. I think I just don't play. We don't take our turns quickly enough when we play it on BGA for me to go, okay, this is what I'm planning to do, and my brain just doesn't work. I need to see it in order to plan it a little bit. It doesn't help I haven't won it that many times. I think I won it the last time we played it by a very small margin.
I can find out probably quite fairly quickly. But yeah, carry on. Yes.
Yeah, it just... Yeah, I don't know. I like it. It's just one of those that you've got it, I don't need to own it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I'd rather...
In fact, I don't think I've updated the scores since last time, but I played this game quite a lot with you, and I've won 72 times. So that gives you 72% of the time.
Yeah.
Sorry, so that gives you an indication of.
Doesn't happen that frequently for me winning this one. I do struggle with it a little bit. Well, it's not a bad thing. Like, I do enjoy it, but yeah, it's good. And I do like that the action selections are randomised each time, like the 4 different action boards.
Yes, the income coming off the back of the actions. Yeah, it's quite
nice.
Good.
And there's also no restriction to your. You can take a particular action and just move a different wheel cog, which is quite nice.
Yes. The thing I hadn't mentioned very quickly on it as well is sometimes it's donations, so you can donate, and that gives you some scoring opportunity as well.
That also annoys me in the setup because it will just block off some of the.
It does block off some of them, and some of them are particularly good for helping you pick a strategy to follow down a little bit as well.
Yes. It's probably one of those that you probably have to play at a higher player count to really appreciate everything.
Yes.
Some of these, there's a lot of games which are you can play it at 2, it's okay at 2, it's better at 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I think Carnegie's probably one of those where I'd rather go into it with a completely open map and play it at 4.
Yes.
And then see what goes on. You have less control, but you have more control on the board, kind of thing.
Yes.
So that's it. My number 2 is a game which a lot of people say is carried by its artwork. I think its artwork does a lot of good things for it, but I really like the game, and that is Flamecraft.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Flamecraft is a game where you are basically going around a little village, and you're going to different artisan places. So you've got all sorts of things like a bakery, a smelters, a butcher's, all these different places you can go to, but they're all being serviced by dragons. And they're all these cute little dragons. They're just around. They're doing their cute little dragon things, and they're helping you out, gaining resources, letting you do different powers on the shop that's there, and then the dragons will do their own abilities. It's not a complicated game. It's a very light game, and I think it's very easy to teach people. I like the level of production that has gone into it, and I bought myself like some extra dragon sculpts because they're just great. They're just really cute. The artwork is fantastic, which a lot of people say. But you know what? I really like the artwork, and I think there's a lot of things in games that can put people off from it. Having really attractive artwork on a light game is going to draw a lot of people into it.
Yeah.
I think the theme is quite nice. The pieces are really nice. The different buildings that come out, they're always randomized, so you're going to get different things coming out. There's a bunch of promo cards and different things that will happen. It is a very light game, but it's a very cute game, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's not it's just one of those chill, let's just play a game for the sake of playing a game, and ultimately does not matter. But it is a good time. I think it's what it does incredibly well, and it's not trying to be anything else, which I like.
I am going to say something maybe a bit controversial, maybe a little bit mean. I don't think
that's fine.
It's a it's going to sound mean, but I don't really mean like this. It's a bit of a nothing game for me, in a sense, right? Because you kind of said it. It's kind of a light game. It's got pretty artwork. I don't mind playing it. Quite enjoy playing it. But when we talk about those, short list of games, I'm going to pick this one. It's going to it's not, for me, it would never appear on that list.
Yeah,
I think if ever someone suggested it, it'd be literally like,
take it or leave it. Yeah,
I'm just literally kind of easy going with it. So
which is fine. A lot of people will have that opinion. Like there was a lot of things I saw about people just talking about the artwork as opposed to the gameplay. But the gameplay, I think the gameplay is actually okay. Is solid for what it's trying to do. And ultimately, what I think that game is trying to do is get more people into the hobby.
Yes.
Because if I was sat in the pub where there's a bunch of new people who are coming to board games, they've never played board games before, I roll out that map and I put down these adorable dragons and this cute artwork and the puns in all of the...
I was just about to compliment the puns.
The puns in all of the different shop names, like Critical Roles in the bakery is fantastic. The bakery, people will come over and have a look at it and go, wow, what's this game? What? This is a board game? And I think as a mechanism for introducing people into the hobby, that is perfect for that. So I have no qualms about putting it this high on my list. Some people may disagree, and that's fine. I just really like it, and it's one of Laura's favourite games.
Yes.
I think it is her favourite game
Yes.
of all time. So it's, and there is a spiritual sequel coming out soon. Like, I think it might be going to Kickstarter later this year, so we'll keep an eye out for that. But it was the first game that Laura asked me to back on Kickstarter for her.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
So-
yeah.
You're not job done.
I think I remember sending it to Laura, then Laura saying, "I've already seen it and we've already backed it," or
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like I saw an advert for it and I forwarded it to her, and she's like, "I'm already on it. Don't worry." Basically, so
It's adorable.
Yeah.
It's great. So yeah, that's our number 2 game. So let's go into our top games of 2022. So here we go. Top game 2022. I've talked about this on other videos and other things that have come up. My number 1 game of 2022 is Planet Unknown.
Yeah.
Planet Unknown is a polyomino tile placement game where you are going off to different planets and you are going to be
Yes.
spinning this Lazy Susan around on each of your turns, and it will stop at a particular point, and you will stop it at a particular point, and you will take tiles off there and place it down, 1 or 2 tiles from the depots, and place it onto your map. When you put it onto your map, you're then going to bump up 2 different tracks on there
Yes.
to try and score different points, and you're just going to keep moving around, taking tiles on every player's turn from these different depots that someone's going to set out for you, and just building up out of this planet and trying to combo as many points as you have. That in itself, really good game. It's
Yes.
just it's simple, it's basic, it does some really nice fun stuff with the polyomino tiles, the different resources, and the different bumping up tracks. Just in the base
Yes.
game, on its own, pretty good. The joy in this game is that there are so many asynchronous maps and so many asynchronous factories or
Goals.
corporations that are in there that you can just flip over and play with those, and they will do different things in the game, and they will change up the game wildly. There are event cards that you can throw into the game. There are meteor strikes that will come down. You've got a little rover that you can run around the track picking up meteorites and life pods that have landed on the planet. It's just so good. It has no I can't think of any particular reason why I enjoy it so much and why it's so high on there. I just know that I love this game. And
Can I jump in?
you sure?
Just very quickly, because it's interesting, right? Because you do love it so much,
Mm.
and usually for me, a space game,
Yes.
a
Polyomino
game,
Yes.
and this is a weird physical thing in the game, the Lazy Susan.
Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, give it to me, let's play. This would be amazing. But for some reason, it just not in West went under the radar. It was just again one of those games where I was a bit like, oh yeah, I'll get around to playing that at some point. I'm sure it'll be great.
Yeah.
Now I've played it digitally.
Yes.
Very clearly, digitally. I played it twice digitally.
Mm-hmm.
Once you and I, 2-player, and that was a bit of a flop because the whole Lazy Susan thing didn't really happen.
Yeah, there's a 2-player variant which is built
Which
into
is
BGA
weird.
where the Lazy Susan just rotates one space, which I think
Yes.
is the proper way to play it at 2, which is kind of like the solo mode, but the way I always play it if I play it at 2 is it's going to move on each turn.
Well, that's
to
the
make
fun
a
of it,
decision.
right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you might as well just have a selection of
Yeah,
cards
you're
and not
picking,
bother with it.
you've got choices.
And then the other time I played it, I felt like I was doing everything right, and I think my score just came out middling. I think in the end.
Okay.
But I think the value I really should play it physically.
Yes.
And actually, I'm quite keen. So it's great that it's on your number 1 because that's
We're
a
going to have to play it.
perfect excuse to actually play it, and probably I do want it with all of the extra bits in that I've not necessarily had an opportunity to explore, because it should tick every single box. If it was a roll and write, we just have a complete home run. But it sounds. I mean, I guess it's a selection and placement. It's not that dissimilar, really, to Isle of Cats in that sense. You're not drawing, but that's what's.
Just the base all cats. Anyway,
So-
yeah. But I mean, I played this game. The first time I played it was digitally on Sovereignty, which I think is probably going to be the B-roll that's been rolling over this.
Yes.
Anyway. So we played it a few times on Sovereignty. It's a fantastic implementation of the game. I think that implementation is better than on BGA, personally.
Yes.
If only because it looks 3D and it helps you.
Well,
do it
BGA is
through
just very flat,
Yeah.
isn't it? Right. Some games that works amazing for, some games that will just not.
Yeah, this one, Sovereignty is just a lot more 3D and a lot more tactile, which I really enjoy and I appreciate. I then went on a vision quest to procure a copy of Planet Unknown, because I think at that time it was just after the Kickstarter had finished, the original Kickstarter.
Yes.
It was not going to be available in the UK for quite a long time.
Yes.
So I was looking around for it, and there was late backing. I was like, oh, great, they're doing late pledges. Cool. Shipping, $500.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to do that. I then went into a Discord and I made a comment about it being out of the price. It's like, well, it's a really good game. Guess I'm not buying it. And a friend I know who lives in America says, oh, I'll pick it up. I'll give you my address, send it to my house, I'll ship it to you. Because the shipping for that came out to be like $30. I was like, I'll pay $90 for this game.
Yeah.
I won't pay $560 for this game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm into Foundations of Rome territory.
Well, not the same, but I was in the same boat for Lacerdas, right? Because I was trying to hunt them all down, and the only way you could get them brand new was pretty much from an Eagle Griffin, and at that point you're paying, wow. I mean, I was looking at some ridiculous numbers when I was looking at, I don't know why, I was looking at all of them, and it was coming at like $2,000. That was a silly thing for me to be doing. But, just to be very clear to the audience, I did not do that.
You did buy them all secondhand.
I'm buying them secondhand. But yeah, so I can feel that pain. But if you really want a game, and you've got the opportunity to do that, I mean, amazing. So
it worked out really nicely for me because it didn't. I didn't think it came across certainly not the deluxe edition like the one I have. Didn't come across the UK for quite a long time. So I'm really glad I've got it. Every time I bring it out and I play it with someone, it's a hit. So I love it. It's a really good one. And now we've got the opportunity to play it, the two of us. So
we do.
Looking forward to it.
Yes, me too.
That long breath in just sounded so insincere.
No, the long breath in is for what I'm about to say.
Oh Jesus! Okay, do I need to brace myself?
Potentially.
Oh God. Okay.
My number one. 2022. I'm not committing you to just one game here, Luke. I'm committing you to potentially up to 14 plays, not just one play. I think maybe more.
Is it Midway?
Undaunted Stalingrad.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay, I can play a game of Undaunted Stalingrad.
So, we could just play one game of Undaunted Stalingrad. Undaunted Stalingrad.
I'm more likely to play this than I am going to be playing Twilight Imperium. Let's put it.
Yes, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's fair. But it's a campaign game, so to really get the benefit of doing it, you kind of want to play it the whole way through. So let me explain. It's a deck builder. Hey, what a surprise! Ross is a deck builder in my game. I'm becoming very, very predictable here, but it's a deck builder. No, it is a deck builder. I think it's the reason why I'm hesitating at the deck builder element is because you do have some control. So basically what you're doing is you land in on a map. You're either playing as Germany or you're playing as Russians, unsurprisingly, because it's in Stalingrad. You're having it's about the whole fight between the two countries over Stalingrad, again, unsurprisingly. And essentially it's a typical kind of deck builder game where you have a deck of cards, you draw some, you play some actions. First one being your initiative. So do you want to use your card for a high initiative, but then you lose out on the potential opportunity to actually play that card for the thing that it gives you. And then depending on who goes first, they go, and it is a battle map in front of you. You're then playing an action for, like, I don't know, scouts, for example, and then you've got a choice. You can typically either move or shoot with your scouts, or scout with your scouts, in fact. Your rifleman, you can move or shoot. With your tanks, you can blow buildings up instead, but also move and shoot. So they're kind of a bit standard. You discard everything off, the opponent does stuff, you're trying to shoot each other. You can win typically in sort of one or two ways. Either you rout two of their core units, their A and B unit, a rifleman, or you complete the objective that is set for that mission in particular. The reason why I hesitate a little bit around is a deck builder is because, yes, you get opportunity to add things like gunners and tanks and all these other bits to your deck. But they're a little bit dependent on the mission you're playing, whether they're available to you or not. Sure. And also, it's not like in other deck builders where you draw a card and then, like, I don't know, you get an extra buy or whatever. That one card is a unit. That one card could be killed. And if that one card is killed, you no longer have access to
that card.
Said card.
Sure, that makes sense.
Without doing too many spoilers, because sometimes that's not true, sometimes that is true.
So Ross, you mean to tell me that the zombies of Stalingrad are real?
Oh, I mean, maybe. Who knows? I'm not going to. No. So you know, but what's brilliant about this game, because it really feels over the course of a campaign, and I've talked about this before, and I'm trying my best not to do lots of spoilering here. But you have units that die. I don't think this is too much of a spoiler. You have units that die.
I mean, it's a war game. People will...
Mission 2
Yep.
that you are going to probably want to have relied on come
Mission 4.
Mission 14 or whatever, right? And you're going to be like, oh crap, like, oh, if only I had those things. I'm currently playing through a campaign of it. A bunch of my tanks got blown up, and now I have very few tank options. And so now when we come to play the maps, which are literally like,
Tank
hey,
battlefields,
use your tanks to defend this position, I have 2, for example. And also, what's extra painful is, because I only have 2 tanks or 2 cards in that sense, that if they get blown up, I have 0. So I'm actually in a position where I'm like, well, I'm going to have to just like dump units in here. They're going to get absolutely annihilated. And then
Because
just
of
hope
all
I
the
can
tanks,
scrape
yeah.
by or do whatever. I have, and this is obviously an option you can do, is just you can just forfeit essentially at any point during the thing. You basically retreat, you lose the mission, but you retain the thing. The other interesting bit as well is the permanent impact the permanent losses you have are dependent on how many casualties you take. So if you take 1 to 4 casualties, you only maybe actually lose 1 unit to death.
Sure.
But the others could potentially be injured and stuff as well, so they're weaker forms of them going forward. I feel like I'm talking too much about this game. It's a good game. It's good deck builder. You've got sort of units out on you've got units out on the board that you're using. The maps change around. What happens in game 1 does impact in game 2. Yeah. I haven't played it to completion, but we're very, very, very close. I think we're probably like 2 missions out from the end of the game, something like that.
Yeah.
It's been really tight between us. I think it's literally gone back and forth. I think I'm 1 game up now, maybe. So yeah, it feels really good. It feels really tight. It's really smart system. There's other Undaunted games. This is the final point I was going to throw in there. There are other Undaunted games. So if you wanted that experience without having to commit to, I think like a £60 game, I think it is at the moment, or maybe I bought it for £60 really cheap. I think I got it really, really cheap, but I can't remember how. Anyway, a more expensive version campaign. You've got stuff all the subject matter. Other than war doesn't really interest you. Then you've got like Battle of Britain. You've got there's like a reinforcements version. There's Normandy. There's another one which I can't
North
think
Africa.
of right now. North Africa. Thank you. Yeah, I'm a bit out of breath now because I was talking about it so much. It's good. It's a great game. It is a really good game. It's a really good campaign game.
I've never played it, so I've got no idea and no expectations of it. It's not a theme I like. I'll be perfectly honest, because war things don't really necessarily appeal to me. I don't like the idea of playing in that particular war. I don't particularly like the idea of playing on either side of that game, which is a thing we've talked about in the past. It's just how I am. I
am the Germans in that game.
Sure.
So yes.
But it's just one of those things of it's just going to be the game.
Yes.
So it is what it is. I like the idea of it. It sounds more interesting to me than Memoir 44, which I bounced off of so hard. I really did bounce off that one. So I'm up for playing it. I'm up for giving it a go and seeing where it goes. And once we get through the first game, we've talked about this at campaign games before. Probably need to put, at least a couple of games.
Yes.
God, I've got hiccups now. To get through and see a little bit more.
In fact, as well, it's quite good because it is geared up really to play multiple games in a row, because when you're playing on the map is a wider map. You can connect all together. So actually, as you're moving across, someone gets pushed back. You're literally removing the tiles from there, and you're placing new tiles out.
Yeah.
So you can. It's quite easy to keep continuous flow. Buildings you blow up in game 1 will be gone for the rest of the campaign and all that other cool stuff as well, which is really awesome. So
yeah. I am now done. It's
a good game.
We'll get you your campaign completely cleared, and then you can play as the Russian.
Yes,
I'll go for the Germans.
Yes,
that'd be
good.
Because I know you want to try both sides. So those are our top games of 2022. Let us know what you think in the comments below. What games did you have in 2022 that were your favourites that came out that year? We're very intrigued to know how that went. If you like what you see, don't forget to give us a follow, a like, a subscribe. Do all the things that you do. We will be doing at least one more of these. We've got 2023 games to do next. And then we're going to look forward to our 2024 releases to see what's coming up at this stage of 2024 that we know is coming. So look forward to some of that. Until next time, thank you very much for joining us. We will see you soon, and goodbye.